Right now on the National Weather Desk, after Beryl, what's left of the one-time hurricane spawns tornadoes and possible flooding, while people across Texas want to know when the power will come back on.
You run into fuel shortages, you can't find fuel.
Also, the remarkable story about a church damaged by a tornado and where they eventually found the steeple.
That building is no longer there.
Excessive heat is baking both coasts, raising concerns about air quality and health.
It looks like bluish, I guess, and it looks like fog. It's just like around Mount Hood here.
We'll help you better understand how heat is actually measured.
It's a very specific way of doing that, and it's not just taking your average thermometer and slapping it on the side of a house.
And take you on a trip into West Virginia's New River Gorge.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
And good morning, everyone, and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm Angela Brown. The remnants of Hurricane Beryl are heading into the northeast today, but not before leaving a path of destruction across several states. A tornado touched down in southwest Indiana Tuesday evening, causing extensive damage to a warehouse and several homes and also other buildings. There are no reports, though, of any injuries or even deaths. It was one of 3 tornadoes reported in that region yesterday, and just a few miles away, that same system pushed a train car off a track. You can see it here, a video showing multiple cars laying on their sides. You can also see debris and power lines on the ground there as well. And just across the Ohio River in Kentucky, the storms snapped massive trees, which brought down power lines, leaving many people without power. And once again, there are no reports of injuries or deaths. And now what is left of Beryl is moving into the northeast, and that's where the greatest risk of severe storms is today. Central New York, including Syracuse, is a 3 out of 5 for possible tornadoes and also wind damage. There's also a level 3 excessive rainfall threat in northern New York, Vermont, and also New Hampshire. It's now been more than 48 hours since Beryl made landfall in Texas, and more than 1.5 million customers are still without power this morning. That is a real problem because temperatures will once again be in the 90s today. Trying to stay cool is hard enough. Finding an open gas station is also another challenge, and those that do have power, you know, they have long lines. Power crews from across Texas and beyond have descended on Houston to help get those lights back on. Betty Cross has more.
Houston has started cleaning up after Hurricane Beryl plowed through, ripping off roofs, uprooting trees, and knocking out power to a few million people. With temperatures now climbing into the 90s, one of the top priorities is getting everyone's air conditioning back on. Harold Reyes is part of the Austin Energy team ready to help. Together with 19 other line workers, he's being briefed to prepare for long shifts in taxing conditions.
I'm sure heat's going to be the issue.
The Austin Energy crew is taking 17 trucks to Houston to restore power to more than 1 million CenterPoint Energy customers. It's a small part of a massive force of 12,000 line workers and tree trimmers who are rolling in from across the country to get electricity on as fast as possible. It can be a logistical challenge bringing in that many workers to an area that's suffering through a natural disaster.
You run into fuel shortages, you can't find fuel. All of the communities, they're local, they're competing for the same resources. I mean, they're looking for housing, their electricity's out, so it's very difficult.
Safety is also a concern. These line workers say it's possible in the confusion. The 2 crews get assigned to the same circuit, and only one knows when it's being energized.
For me, I'm most worried about the electricity because you can fix a snake bite, but you can't really fix a electrical burn. We want to go home to our families with all our fingers and toes.
The winds that knocked out the power were so strong they even damaged the Houston Texans Stadium. At least 3 panels are missing from the roof. You see it right here this morning. The Texans' first home preseason game is just 38 days away. Coastal communities are also facing life without power here. Mellow Styles is in the Bolivar Peninsula to show us how people there are making do.
Work that has been fixed after Tropical Storm Alberto is now destroyed after Hurricane Beryl. All left behind was down power lines and thousands without power.
We have a generator, but it cut off last night. Yeah, and struggling. This heat is bad. You know, we just came here and got some food and drink.
The big store, one of the only stores open on the peninsula, mainly due to its generator, With many still without power, there are many things residents need while they wait, as they've been limited due to not being able to get items in with the closure of Highway 87. Czar tips his hat to Entergy and the county officials for working tirelessly to get power back up and running.
And Beryl also spawned several tornadoes in and near Texas. This is Jasper, about 2 hours northeast of Houston. Our storm chaser, Britta Dare, was there. He found several homes damaged by the twister and large trees simply pulled apart. About 100 miles north is Mansfield, Louisiana. A tornado that touched down there destroyed a church. The steeple was found about a half a mile down the road. Vacation Bible School was supposed to be in person when that tornado hit, but thankfully it was canceled before. Meteorologist Riley Blackwell looks at all the tornado warnings that were issued before Beryl.
Hurricane Beryl made landfall just the other day, but also as a hurricane moves inland, they can also produce tornadoes, especially on the eastern side of the center of circulation. This is a radar loop over the past couple of days showing a bunch of tornado warnings for parts of East Texas and western and northwestern Louisiana, some of which were even confirmed tornado warnings. This is something we frequently see with landfalling tropical systems, especially on that eastern side of the circulation. But exactly how many tornado warnings did we see? From Hurricane Beryl's landfall and track, we saw at least 110 tornado warnings issued by those National Weather Service offices.
Meantime, Colorado State University updated its outlook for this hurricane season. It now predicts 25 named storms, 12 hurricanes, with 6 of them Category 3 or higher. Now, those numbers are slightly higher than their original forecast. The meteorologists offer several reasons for this change, but make special note of the extremely warm sea temperatures. And speaking of heat here, temperatures continue to sizzle on both coasts today. In the east, we are watching an excessive heat warning in the mid-Atlantic, including Washington, New York, and even eastern Pennsylvania. Out west, people in 7 different states are facing excessive heat warnings today. The heat is also having an impact on air quality. Jeffrey Lindblom is in Portland, Oregon with more.
It looks like bluish, I guess, and it looks like fog. It's just like around Mount Hood here.
Which could be harmful to our health.
That fog is actually smog, and the Oregon DEQ says sometimes heat waves create the right weathery mixture to issue an air quality advisory, being hot temps and sunlight mixed with low winds and pollutants.
And that's what creates that smog.
But apart from the smog, Reyes says there's something else he's noticed around the area.
On roads, I see like waves.
And right where those heat waves are radiating is where the Oregon DEQ says you can help dissipate the hazy blue smog hovering over the metro by simmering down pollution and opting for public transportation rather than driving yourself, or by carpooling.
Try to avoid having an idling engine. If you need to refuel your car, do so at a time like a cooler time in the evening.
They're also asking those who have children, are elderly, or have respiratory issues to stay indoors as much as possible and avoid strenuous outdoor activity, while the weather and pollutants work together to create this smog.
And visitors to the Grand Canyon National Park are asked to be extra cautious. The National Weather Service says high temperatures have averaged 5 to 7 degrees hotter than normal since June. Now, rangers say temperatures on the trail could be more than 120 degrees, and that is in the shade, which is why they urge people to avoid hiking from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And now to Ruidoso, New Mexico. The region finds itself in nature's crosshairs once again. This time, though, it's flash flooding sparked by heavy rain near a wildfire burn scar Tuesday. Residents were ordered to evacuate several areas along the Rio Ruidoso and leave all of their property, all of their belongings behind. The flooding also caused multiple gas leaks in the village. If you recall, just last month, thousands of people had to flee their homes because a pair of wildfires that burned near that town. And newly released video shows a dramatic rescue of an injured hiker on Oregon's Mount Hood. A 55-year-old hiker was critically injured after falling 700 feet down a frozen surface on Saturday. A couple of off-duty military medics saw him fall and were able to reach him to help him. A number of agencies worked together to get the man off the mountain and to a hospital. At last check, the injured hiker was listed in critical but stable condition. And coming up on the National Weather Desk, we'll show you how official temperature readings are taken, and it's not as simple as you may think.
I'm meteorologist Charlie Lopresti with Look at the Northeast. It's another hot and humid day on tap for today with temps mostly in the 80s. Some areas may touch 90 degrees. The other big story, there is the potential for thunderstorms. Damaging wind is the primary threat, and there is the chance for isolated tornadoes, especially into New York. That's about 5 p.m. The threat for flooding becomes the concern during the nighttime hours tonight and heading into Thursday morning. That chance is greatest in the mountains. Thursday will see some improvement, but it stays muggy.
I'm Chief Meteorologist Gerard Bailey. Here's a look at the Mid-Atlantic region. Your morning starts out pretty dry, but as we move through the late evening, we will look at a better chance for showers and thunderstorms onto your Wednesday afternoon. I think we're nice and dry until late Thursday night. Highs for your Wednesday afternoon still reaching the mid-90s, maybe just a few degrees cooler, but all the humidity will be there. We will see far less humidity coming in as we move into Thursday, though. Highs will still reach the low 90s, but not as uncomfortable.
I'm meteorologist Charlotte Carl. Good morning. We have another toasty day ahead of us throughout the majority of the southeast. We're going to be in the mid-90s, areas in the mountains getting into the mid-80s, and then Florida also hanging out in the low 90s as well. We will see more sea breeze showers and storms develop, especially as a mid-level low pressure system shifts into the Gulf of Mexico, and then typical afternoon showers expected along the Florida Peninsula and along some of our Atlantic coast beaches as we head throughout Wednesday evening and overnight.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
Some sudden soaking rain fell on the San Antonio area Tuesday. The showers weren't related to Beryl, but are much needed because drought conditions persist in the area. Here's the waxing crescent moon as seen over Reno skies Monday night. During this phase, most of the illuminated half of the moon faces away from Earth, except this thin sliver.
For more content like this, like the National Weather Desk on Facebook.
We have been talking a lot about hurricanes this week, and we are still pretty early, in the season. While no two hurricanes are exactly alike, they all have the same kind of general structure and characteristics. Meteorologist Taylor Knos explains.
No two hurricanes are exactly alike, but they all have the same basic structure and characteristics. You've likely heard of the eye of the hurricane. This relatively calm and clear center of the storm usually stretches 20 to 40 miles and offers a brief reprieve from the ferocious winds found in the eye wall. This wall of thunderstorms surrounding the eye contains the strongest winds of the hurricane. A hurricane's spiral rain bands can extend hundreds of miles away from the eye, but can still develop strong wind gusts and occasionally tornadoes. Hurricanes can be broken down into 4 quadrants relative to the storm's direction. The right front quadrant is typically the strongest part of the hurricane, where winds blow in the same direction that the hurricane is moving. This is where you'll find the highest storm surge and the best environment for tornadoes. The right rear quadrant is not quite as intense, but still poses a threat for strong winds, tornadoes, storm surge, and flooding. The left rear quadrant is considered the weakest part of a hurricane, but still poses a threat for dangerous gusts and flooding. Finally, the left front quadrant contains strong wind gusts blowing offshore, which typically limits the threat for storm surge.
And another thing we've been talking a lot about here are temperatures. Many parts of the country are dealing with, really a scorching heat wave, but how are those temperature readings actually taken? It's not as simple as you may think. Meteorologist Chris Kuiper explains.
The blazing heat wave continues here in California. Death Valley was up to 127 degrees this afternoon. We've been talking a lot about temperatures lately, but how are those temperatures actually taken? There's a very specific way of doing that, and it's not just taking your average thermometer and slapping it on the side of a house. It's going to radiate that heat back from the house and artificially inflate those temperatures up quite a bit. What has to be done is the thermometer has to be out of direct sunlight. Ideally, put it in a box, paint that box white so it reflects a little bit more of the sunlight, and then mount that box about 4 or 5 feet above the ground, not in a parking lot, but over a grassy surface or over maybe a gravel surface or something like that. Here's my home setup. And again, it's not perfect, and we can't always get a perfect setup at our own homes here as amateur weather observers here, but this one's kind of enclosed in an area, doesn't have great airflow on into it, but still, you get the idea of how to take now an accurate temperature reading.
Well, in addition to hearing your local meteorologist talk about temperatures, you can also hear them mention something called the heat index, or the feels like temperature outside. To get a better understanding of what factors go into the heat index, let's take a look at this Facebook post from meteorologist Kevin Koskinen.
It all has to do with the fact that your body cools down naturally by sweating. So if you have a low humidity day, the sweat evaporation, when you overexert yourself with the heat, will remove your body heat and you will cool down naturally. So drier air will allow moisture to evaporate from your skin more readily, and that's going to cool the body. Well, what happens when it's hot and humid? Well, we have problems. We start to overheat. That moist air will limit the evaporation of the sweat from your skin, which makes you uncomfortable and it makes you overheat, and it doesn't allow your body to do its sweating mechanism, which is what's supposed to cool you down. So that's the problem of a hot and humid day.
Well, we all know these bugs, they are common in the summer months. You see them flashing around, but do you call them fireflies or do you call them lightning bugs? Well, as meteorologist Joy Bettenhausen shared on Instagram, it depends maybe on where you live.
Okay, we have to settle the debate. Do you call them fireflies or lightning bugs? And cue that firefly song that's probably going to be stuck in all of our heads now. Now, I'm sure you've seen this map before. It loves to float around every summer. We want to credit Business Insider and Josh Katz. Lightning bugs. I mean, that's what I called them growing up, and I grew up in the Chicago suburbs. According to this map, those in the Northeast, those, especially on the western half of the country, call them fireflies, and it looks like in Oklahoma we could see a mix between lightning bugs and fireflies. So what do you call them? Did you see fireflies or lightning bugs this year? They love the warm and damp conditions, and if it's warmer than it should be, like earlier in the season, they might come out a little bit earlier. They get confused. They live underground in the winter, and then they come up through the spring and early summer. So for those folks down in the south, Oklahoma, we're looking at late May into early June. And then I remember back home, they'd come out right around the 4th of July, but I know it's kind of been hot and humid everywhere a little bit earlier this year, so we might have already missed our peak. And it's actually adults who light up, not so much the babies. So pretty interesting. You got to weigh in. What do you call these, fireflies or lightning bugs?
Well, if you want to get out in the summer heat and like hiking and also learning about nature, the New River Gorge in West Virginia is a place where you can do both. Meteorologist Brandon Stover takes us on a short eco tour.
This is hemlock tree, which is a keystone species in the New River Gorge and in a lot of places in the Appalachian Mountains.
Sean Meads and Amy McLaughlin know the New River Gorge up and down. The married couple opened Lafayette Flats Boutique Vacation Rentals in Fayetteville about 10 years ago.
We've seen our customers change a little bit, and especially after the national park designation came through. Where people previously had been coming more for adventure activities, they started coming more for hiking and nature activities, which of course is our passion and our love. We're both master naturalists. There wasn't an activity that we could recommend to them where they could really learn about the nature and the forests and the natural history of the New River Gorge. So we thought we'll just start our own.
This is a Christmas fern.
The tours first started with their guests only, but that changed in March of this year when public tours were also made available.
So we do group tours where we'll take a larger group to kind of a predetermined spot. But we also offer private tours, and we will tailor those to the interests of our guests. So look, guys, this is a hemlock varnish mushroom. They call them varnish because the top of them look like they've been varnished, like wood has been varnished. We like to think that we are involved in sustainable tourism because we help people find the other places, the places less traveled.
A lot of times we'll have guests that are interested in the coal mining history, and of course, there's plenty of that to see in the New River Gorge.
The tours are offered April through November when you can see more flora and fauna.
One of our goals of New River Gorge Eco Tours is that people will leave with a deeper appreciation of the nature, the history, and to really understand why it is a national park.
We found that there's not necessarily a deep understanding that this is one of the oldest rivers in the world. This is one of the oldest mountain ranges in the world.
And time now for a short break, but first we take in the views of Washington State's Eagle Falls from above.
Well, a very good Wednesday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Buck-Michael. We got some scattered showers and storms with Beryl finally starting to move its way out of the region later today, but still a little wet across the lower Great Lakes. Got a couple of showers and storms possible as we head into your Thursday. And by the time that we get into Friday, most of us are pretty dry and temperatures heating back up. We're getting all the way into the mid-90s, all the way up in the Dakotas, and even Green Bay getting up to 86 there on Friday. So it's going to start heating up once again.
Good Wednesday morning to you. I'm meteorologist Chris Suchan. Look at our forecast today across the region, starting off with 60s and 70s, of course, low 80s near the Gulf. A lot of sunshine into the afternoon, sort of a typical day of heat with 80s and 90s across the region. A couple of Gulf Coast showers and thunderstorms. We step into your forecast on Thursday, and in the afternoon, mostly to partly sunny, highs in the 80s and 90s. Could see a spotty shower or thunderstorm and a little bit of a better chance as you work near the Gulf Coast and South Texas.
Well, hi there, everybody, and a good Wednesday morning to you. I'm meteorologist Shannon O'Donnell. The big heat dome that has had such a tight grip on the west is starting to push to the east, so you can see Seattle and Portland coming down today. San Francisco at a reasonable enough 73 because of the fog through the Golden Gate, but back to 118 out of Las Vegas and 109 today in Boise. That big area of high pressure, the so-called heat dome, moving closer to the Four Corners this afternoon. And that's the scene from here.
The National Weather Desk.
Birds and squirrels are a common sight in the summer months, but recently a Rhode Island woman came face to face with a large black bear at her window. Leanna Falk has more.
Leela Gill's Hopkinton apartment has a front row seat to all things nature, but wildlife is far and few between.
This is a big bear.
Until now.
I got up and walked towards the window, which by the way is only about 7 feet from me.
And when she looked out, a black bear was looking right back at her.
Sudden, bam, this big brown furry thing filled my window.
Immediately captured by his size.
Gotta be 150 pounds or so.
And his demeanor, capturing these photos of the surprisingly curious and unsurprisingly hungry animal.
Just took a look around a little bit. He checked out the bird stand. There wasn't any food on it.
The bear eventually wandered off and the concern crept in. Leela felt she needed to spread the word.
Better put a little sign up inside each door. Warn people a bear has been spotted here, and you probably should take your bird seeds in and just keep your eye out.
thank you so much for joining us. I'm Angela Brown. Make it a great Wednesday, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.